Hi everyone, welcome to Novel Nomad and welcome to my mid-June catch-up. So I was totally going to do a June TBR, but then I was thinking I didn't really want to limit myself to anything in June because it's so many options to read, and I've been doing so many readathons in the last 2 months. I just wanted to give myself a bit of a break. So what I'm going to do is a mid-June catch-up, go through the books that I have read so far, the books that I will be reading for book clubs and buddy reads, and also the books that are on my hopeful TBR, so things that I would like to read this month. So starting off, I desperately got through because it kind of snuck up on me how quickly this book club was coming around, and we read The Goblin Emperor by Catherine Addison for our sci-fi feminist book club, and this was actually really fabulous. The whole world building never felt like a chore. It was really intensely fantastic fantasy, and it just felt so present in its world. It was just really fabulous. I know it won an award, but I was so lucky getting this copy because it was on sale at my local library for like 50 cents, and I managed to get all the library tags off it, and it's basically like a really fabulous edition. So yeah, this was actually really fun. It was a really interesting fantasy, very deep world building and fantastic characters. I really thoroughly enjoyed this. Next, I read for my breakfast book club. I read this a bit earlier. We don't have the meeting till the end of the month, but I read this early so someone else in the book club can borrow the book, and that is Ali Wong, Dear Girls. This is Intimate Tales, Untold Secrets and Advice for Living Your Best Life. Now, I know of Ali Wong. I've watched her movie that she did, Always Be My Maybe, but I haven't seen her comedy series on Netflix, Baby Cobra, or like that one show. And I know her like comedy is like fabulously funny, but it was really interesting reading her biography because at the same time I was laughing, but some of the things that she did was so outrageous, but they so felt so authentically Ali Wong that it was just brilliant to read anyway. I did enjoy this, but I wouldn't say it's one of those biographies that really changed me or gave me something. It just actually gave me a bit of a big old slice of Ali Wong in here, which is basically really fun anyway. Next, a book that I just finished last night, which absolutely devastated me, but at the same time I loved every moment, and that is The Black Flamingo by Dean Atter. This follows a young boy called Michael who grows up knowing he is different. So not only does he feel that his sexuality is different to the norm, but he also grows up feeling that he is different, and he always is trying to find a place to belong because his mum is Greek Cypriot and his dad is from a Jamaican family. They live in London, so he always feels on the outside. So I think that was really fascinating, and it kind of goes from a very young age all the way through to the end of high school and into uni, the first year uni, and he basically tries to really discover who he is along the way, and he's so emotionally honest throughout this book. It's beautiful. Now, what is amazing about this book is it's a verse novel, so it's actually poetry, it's verse all the way along, and it has amazing illustrations. It just is so intimate, and it's just stunning just to read this boy's story of trying to find a place he belongs, but by the end of it he knows he can belong with himself. And that was such a beautiful ending. I was all misty-eyed last night when I finished it, so it's brilliant. I also, after reading it, I've got the audiobook because Dean Atter himself reads the audiobook. He is a spoken word poet as well, so I think the pacing that he would apply to the novel and reading of the novel will be brilliant as well. So I think this was one of my picks that I wanted to read for Pride Month, and I just cannot recommend this enough. It's just come out in the US. I do prefer this cover though, the UK and Australian cover, but it's absolutely stunning, and you have to read it. It's so brilliant. Not only is it revolutionary in the ideas of someone to find a place within themselves, within their race, within their culture, within everything, they're trying to find a place for themselves, but also a verse novel. I haven't read many verse novels before, but this was stunning. Okay, so next are the two books that I have to read this month for relative book clubs and buddy reads. So number one is Thorn by Initstar Kanani. This is a a retelling of the fairy tale Goose Girl from a reasonably dark perspective apparently. So a dark fairy tale retelling, which I always thoroughly enjoy. Apparently it was brilliantly done, and this is for a YA book club that I am now hosting at my local bookstore. So this one's going to be really interesting. And secondly, Elizabeth George, Playing for the Ashes. Now I desperately finished Missing Joseph last month, so I could be up to date. I'll be reading this with the lovely Kate Howe, and I am thoroughly enjoying the Linley mysteries. I mean, it's interesting because they're focusing so much on character, and I do love a character story. So this one's going to be really fun. It is, I think, one of the first of the huge novels. I think they're roughly all this size going along, but yeah, otherwise I can't wait to read another Elizabeth George. Okay, so let's go into what I would like to read. I'm not going to be really strict on myself for these selections or try to get them all read. I just feel that I want to dabble in the waters and just have these options available, but they're ones that are quite pressing that I would like to read now. So starting off, I've got a few for Pride Month that I had put aside that I really wanted to read, and the first one is Amelia Westlake by Erin Go, and this one sounds really fascinating. It's a girl goes to an all-girls school, and this new girl who is quite against the curve piques her interest, and so she has to kind of start to play the power game within this girls' school and try to understand that the personal is political in many sense, even within a school. So I think this is going to be really fun and really challenging, and it's also about a LGBTQ relationship for these two girls, which is fabulous. And secondly is Holden Shepherd's Invisible Boys. This is about three boys in a small town who basically are all the classic stereotype of one thing or another, but there's a secret that they all hold that will set them free. So these are both Australian LGBTQIA, and I'm really excited. Invisible Boys has recently got a little bit of hype because it's come up for the Readings. I think it's the Readings YA Book of the Year or something. I can't quite remember, but I do want to read it. I read The Sidekicks by Will Kostakis a few years ago, and I loved it, and this is kind of giving me the Sidekicks vibe, so I definitely want to add that one to my hopeful TBR. So another one for Pride Month that I have bumped up because of the recent ridiculousness on Twitter, which is horrendous, and I won't go into because I think we all agree that that author is wrong, and trans lives matter and trans women are women, and that is Gender Games by Juno Dawson. And I think what sells this book is the subtitle, The Problem with Men and Women from Someone Who Has Been Both. And I think this is going to be really fascinating to look at gender from a trans perspective, and it's just going to be endlessly interesting because I've done things like the gendered brain, where people put gender politics into science and study of neuroscience as well, and I've done so many different gender things, but gender from a trans perspective is going to be so brilliant, and it's such a unique and diverse voice that we need to accentuate and we need to appreciate a lot more. Next, let's go into some Black and Indigenous writers, because obviously everything that's happening right now makes us realise that we have to promote and read and listen more to our Black and Indigenous writers. So number one is going to be Throat by Ellen Van Neven. Ellen is actually a Indigenous woman in Australia, and Throat is a collection of poetry. This is her second collection, but it's getting a lot of hype. So I jumped on the bandwagon with this one, and I cannot wait. It really is fascinating. Basically, she explores love language and the land. Van Neven flexes their muscles to shine a light on Australia's unreconciled past and precocious present, because Australia, like most colonial countries, is very bad at recognising its own dark histories and likes to bury them very far down. So this is going to be fabulous. I cannot wait to read more poetry. I'm trying to read at least one collection a month, and really challenging myself with different voices as well. Next is Yagyasi's Homegoing. This is going to be a really intense read because it's about two sisters, one who marries a slave trader and the other who is sold into slavery. and that premise alone is just making me feel like it's going to be such an intense read. This one I've had on my shelf for a while, but I'm bumping it up and putting it onto my hopeful TBR for June, given all the current climate in the world at the moment. I want to read more books by Black writers. I want to keep listening, learning and educating myself. And continuing on with that theme, obviously I think this is like slowly evolved throughout June, but one that I have actually, I really had to find this book because it was so hard to get a paperback copy, but Black and British: A Forgotten History by David Olusoga. Now what is amazing about this book is I actually saw David on a BBC program and he was talking through it was a history program and it was endlessly fascinating, so I instantly looked him up, and he has done like a series of history within a particular publishing cycle. But his book Black and British: A Forgotten History is one that I've been wanting to read ever since you read about fiction books and you read like a black character come into it, and it always seems so unique, and I feel like that is so untrue because obviously even in Dickens there was a representation of black people, but they were classically given the stereotype. So I think what I really want to understand is the black history of Britain, and to really break down that myth of white Britain and this kind of white leadership and white power in Britain. So I cannot wait to read this one. I think it's going to be amazing. It is quite of a hefty read, but I think it's going to be highly educational and rip the veil from my eyes like Dark Emu did for me with Australian history. Okay, so that is my mid-June wrap up. I'll probably be doing another video soon doing the classic mid-year book tag. I don't think it's going to be the mid-year book tag as such. I think I'm going to like shake it up a bit and do something a little bit different. Anyway, I hope you all have a wonderful day, happy reading, and I'll see you next time. Bye!